Civilized.
Hello, everybody. We are back for the last show of the year. It's just after 1 p.m. Central Time, and on Wednesday, December 28th, and I'm here with 27th. I'm sorry, 28th tomorrow. I was like, yeah. Dylan Radigan and myself, Tom Sosnoff. Last Truth or Skepticism of the year. You ready, Mr. Radigan?
I'm ready. There's basically two obviously available topics here. One is the price extreme repricing of risk at the extreme pace of repricing of risk in the bond market the last 2 months. The pace is, I think it's one of the fastest changes from A to B ever in terms of expectations for rate cuts and all the rest of it.
I'll give you that in a in a world of a non-binary event, like without panic, yes,
yeah,
it's the fastest rate of change I've ever seen.
And I believe statistically that it's beyond anecdotally. I think statistically, I'm saying it's a topic. There's a major repricing the last 2 months at a velocity that is higher than seen in the past.
Probably pretty close. I'll give you that. Okay, what else you got?
That's an interesting topic for me as the year concludes, as an option. Yet another is the following. It's very easy to make a case, the public person, as you might call them, might make the case that 2024 will really be the year that you start to see AI implemented, not just demonstrated, that the digestive period of the technology, that the digestive period of the rates, the digestive period of the inflation, the pandemic, whatever, that 2024 is a more creative, that it's a more of an implementation year for the future, and that's more consequential than anyone can comprehend. And it's as big as the steam engine.
Not even remotely a chance.
Listen, we wouldn't even have to talk. I'm saying those are the two obvious topics.
Yeah.
AI as steam engine in the Industrial Revolution starting in the 20s.
Yeah.
And and also I would say relevant. They're relevant to each other. This risk repricing, that then the AI is used, the machine learning is used as the efficiency narrative is used to justify why inflation can come back in without rising employment.
I would say that the chances that AI is not already either fully priced or fully overpriced is 10 to 1 over that AI is underpriced at this point.
Okay, this is going to be a fun game. So what's more overpriced, sir? AI as a concept or equities or the 10-year? What's more extreme?
I'm going to give you a couple of extremes, okay? The NASDAQ is an extreme, extremely overpriced, I believe. When I talk about overpriced, I only talk about it relative to what my perception is of risk the other way. If I was to look at like some specific topics, I'll tell you the three that are probably four that are most overpriced. One, and in no particular order, Bitcoin ETF, the most ridiculous overpriced move in Coinbase and in others expecting Bitcoin ETF approval and ETH ETF approval, the most ridiculous overpriced.
Sell them all.
Should be sold until your hands bleed. It's the easiest short I've ever seen.
Okay.
NASDAQ up 55% in 2023. It's irrelevant what it did in 2022. The entire NASDAQ, the upside versus downside. Now, it's the same thing. I'm not saying that Bitcoin ETFs can't stabilize the market, make that go a little bit higher, whatever it is. It's just upside versus downside is
probability.
No, pot odds. The pot odds are 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1 in favor of the downside in Bitcoin or digital asset ETFs in with respect to NASDAQ, in my opinion, just because of the crazy move. AI being the third, every related AI stock is so ridiculously overvalued. I think those
Meaning NVIDIA through Microsoft. I mean, we put them both in there.
Pick your poison. Doesn't make a difference.
Sell them all.
Sell them all, or just don't be long them.
Or don't be hanging around their part of town.
Yes. And then the last one is the bond market. We are just about to trade 126 today. And the idea that the Fed is going to be as dumb as they were last time, that people are assuming right now they learned no lessons. And I understand that the market got washed out and it got way too oversold. And I would argue that the bonds, when they dropped under 115 and they went all the way down to 107, was just panic selling and, just a crazy, ridiculous, way undervalued sell-off. And they're probably back to some normal level. But at 126 here, there's about 2, 3, 4 handles of upside and 8 handles of downside. I do not like the bond market either. So those are my 4. If you were asking me for the
those are the most extreme, but the most fascinating. Thank you for that. That I was asking that.
Okay.
But the most fascinating thing, I think, is the original thing, which is the velocity of the change in the duration, the extremity and duration of the change. But let's say between November 1st and today.
Yeah, but you can argue that between November 1st and today, in the NASDAQ, in the S&Ps, in the Bitcoin, ETF game,
but even in the expected number of cuts or in the number of price cuts, blah blah blah.
Yeah, and in the bond market, you can argue all of those since we looked at it yesterday. I think Tony and I looked at this, Dylan. Since November 1st, there's been 7 down days in the market in 2 months. And markets don't act like that. The markets are normally, very different, 53, 55, 45, 53, 47, and so that's almost 40 trading days. And, we're 33 and 7. That's not, this is randomness, 33 and 7, not,
Well, but that's why I find it fascinating for a moment of discussion. Is it randomness or is it evidence of anything that other than randomness? Or what would you need to see to think that it's more than randomness?
You could never convince me, ever.
Even if it went like this for 3 years.
You'd never convince me. It would take there's nothing you can do. And one last topic, which I think is actually kind of interesting for today, that I would like to touch on, is that because this is our last event of the year, the people or the events that defined 2023.
Well, I mean, that's so fun and so easy. I mean, that's really
is it easy?
Taylor Swift. Come on,
Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Would you put them number 1?
Taylor's 1. I put Dion 2.
Deion Sanders.
Yeah.
Would you?
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think. Deion Sanders. I didn't have him in my list.
I put Nikki Haley, had a good year. Probably peaked too soon, probably doesn't matter. But out of that Republican political mess, she came out the most promoted.
Santos had a big year.
Santos big on just the full guerrilla, just the criminal guerrilla move.
Yeah.
Just any which way, just shapeshifter. Santos is good. Biden, you can't do anything with Biden.
No.
There's nothing.
No,
nothing.
Can't do anything with Trump either, because I think Biden and Trump are just eliminated on general principle.
That's right.
I can't stand another. Another Trump headline is just worthless.
No one wants it.
Yeah,
no one wants it.
No one.
So I'll give you Taylor. I'll give you Dion.
Okay, I like that.
I'll give you. Now I forgot.
You gave me Nikki Haley.
Oh, Nikki Haley, which is really a stretch on my part because my goodness. Oh, and then Santos. What about? We'll just go with those 3: Santos, Taylor Swift, and Dion are the 3 people of the year on Truth or Skepticism. Those are the most important people in America.
And the Kelce brothers, I could throw those guys in there too.
Okay, you put them on the list. You can put them on.
Honorable mention. Honorable mention. Yeah.
They got. Yeah, they get an honorable mention. They still are they're a non-voting, but they still have all the access.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a.
I feel like 2023 was like a digestive year, more of a like processing the sort of the all the remote work transition, the inflation, the mortgage rates, all those things. Whereas I feel like 2024 offers a little bit more.
How about another group on the list should be the hundreds, if not thousands, of economists that predicted this horrible recession that we're supposed to be in right now that we're not in?
Make them the headliner.
Well, they're almost a headliner because it's pretty impossible to be, well, I shouldn't say pretty impossible. It's just, it's so...
To be so unanimously wrong?
So unanimously wrong. Like every...
With so many resources to support your opinion?
Exactly. How can every freaking economist for every major financial institution be wrong about the recession that we're supposed to be choking away in right now?
Which is an important question, which I think brings up an additional question, which is equally, if not even more important, is why, in the face of the historical randomness that you would suggest is the final outcome here, is there such a strong desire to put so many resources into making such forecasts and so many resources into tracking, following?
It's PR. It's only PR. It's nothing to do. It's you are not measured. It's easy answer for that. You are not measured on how right you are.
On accuracy.
You are measured on how much and how many of your quotes are picked up by the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and whoever else, and whatever other.
Your thought leadership is the asset.
Your quotability, yes. How many times was your name quoted or mentioned, or what you said? You know, that's all it is.
The
it's
Tom
just
Sosnoff report. How many times was it in the Wall Street Journal this quarter?
Yeah, it's just, that's all it is. It has nothing to do with what you say. It only has to do with, with how many times your name is posted.
So
it's pure PR.
That the goal is editorial status at prestigious.
Well, it's free marketing. That's how so it's subliminal marketing or it's content marketing. It's just, you get
It's also positioning. It positions yourself, this vendor, as an expert because they're quoted as an expert by a respected.
Sure. Hey, listen, I'll pay you $250,000 a year, but you need to be on CNBC, 13 times, once a month. There you go.
Go nuts.
And then your other work is just, it's a freebie.
And even if we spend a payroll 5 heads, 4.5 people for 3 months to jam the deadline on 100 pages of God knows what.
Well, really, I mean, what value is the Economist? How many if you work for a large financial institution, how many of your, how much of a difference?
What is the value? What is the value?
What is the value to your money managers, to your RIAs, to your internal staff? It's zero. Nobody even reads that stuff. Nobody cares.
It is true.
I mean, come on, let's tell it like it is. I mean,
what is the value of your psychological comfort?
I wrote about it this weekend.
It's knowing that there's smart people that are thinking about this all the time, and at least they may be wrong, but at least they're trying to figure it out.
It's faceless, soulless, generic finance, and it's irrelevant. It only matters your quotability. And where you end up.
Okay. So let's go. I like what you're doing, but I don't think you've gone far enough. Let me take you to the future, to my world in 2024, on the other side of AI as the steam engine.
Okay.
A broker like Tasty or like Schwab or E-Trade or Robinhood or whatever, I can go to AI and say, build me a brokerage like Tasty.
Okay, sure. No, you can't. You can say they can't build the brokerage, but
yeah, but I'm saying in the future it can. Don't worry about it.
Okay, sure.
Okay, like anything. It's not personal.
Yeah, sure.
And build me this car. Make me a Tesla.
Yeah.
Like get me that theoretically, right? Like that's why.
Just like 3D printing. You don't need manufacturers anymore. You just have 3D printers, okay? I just want to bring you back to not only less than 10 years ago when basically 3D printing was going to change the world because 3D printing meant that you didn't have to have a factory.
Production, distributed schematics.
That's right. All you got to do is just send me the plans. I'll throw it through a 3D printer.
Boom.
Next thing you know, I'll have a kidney. I'll have a knife, a bolt, whatever you want.
A new television.
Exactly. How's that working?
It's going pretty well in Korea. The Americans
sure.
are picking up on
If you want a plastic Tom head, okay, here you go. Here's your 3D printer, okay? But other than that, okay.
You got a styrofoam fart.
I mean, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you see this 3D printed head or whatever this is? This is AI 2 years from now.
That's MIT's. Oh, really?
Yeah,
really?
This was AI 10 years ago. It's called 3D printing. This is AI 2 years from now. It's you're now going to have a talking Tom head that can kind of say what Tom can say, but it's not just plastic. But it doesn't help you at all. So yeah, you're going to print me a brokerage firm. You're going to print me tastylive. You're going to do it all over, right? Yeah.
Well, no, but my point is the content. I was basically thinking about your point about the Economists and going on television.
Yeah.
That as the technology becomes more and more accessible, whether it's the fee structure, the developers, the regulatory architecture, as whatever the liberalization of fintech is, like there must be a point of convergence. And I would think that the content only takes on that much more value, which can both be very potent, but also very dangerous because there's a desire to believe soothsayers in the financial world that sort of I think is impossible to change.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think the crowd demands a soothsayer.
Yeah,
they demand somebody comes out and tells them the future, even if they're wrong.
Yeah. Well, there's obviously a market for that. That's why CNBC and Bloomberg exist.
But that's also why the Abby Joseph Cohen existed, or
They blow out. The reason that a single person can't continue is because they're not interesting. So it's a crazy cool dynamic that you just brought up. But the reason that CNBC and Bloomberg survive is, and it's not just there's just examples in finance, but the reason they
most successful.
The reason they survive is because they have a rotation of people that they're constantly, so Abby Joseph Cohen, she was only as good as
They can elevate. They take them up the elevator and down the elevator.
Yeah, right.
Another one.
You're only as good as your last quarter. You're only as good as your last prediction. You're only as good until you're
whatever the Forbes article is. Whatever.
Of course. And then you die down. Kathy Woods it, and the next person comes in, and there's a new Kathy Woods. And it's Katie Woods, and then there's a new one, and it's Christy Woods. And they just keep going down the line. But
Byron Ween and those guys.
Yeah. There's another Byron Ween, and then there's this Larry Ween, and they keep going down. It's just they just replace them with new people, and that's the whole game. And
but the crowd wants those people.
I understand, but the reality of it, the only true survivors through all this, like the people that go on forever. Like the people that are actually interesting that go on forever. They're the ones that don't do. They don't have guests and they don't do the news. This is the whole thing behind Tasty. It was always like, let's copy a different model. Let's work on the model. Like, why was Johnny Carson able to stay around forever? What's the difference? Why is Howard Stern work? Why do those things, because there's a personality there that you can't recreate through AI. Why does Tasty work? Because Tony and I do something, because it's our own stupidity, it's our own craziness, that's the fun part. And
no, I mean, I agree with. I think that if anything, the AI makes the human content, the content side, the creative side of the human, more valuable than ever.
That's my whole point. Yes, that's the whole thing. We're going towards. That's why when you brought up that example of, okay, I put in build me Tasty, you can't do it. It's my whole point.
No, but what I'm saying is, but imagine I could just give me the 3D print me the brokerage.
Sure.
Now my barrier is the content.
Yeah. Good luck.
As the technology to print your own brokerage goes up.
But technology has already been commoditized. And and big firms are incredibly incompetent and unable to, why does Schwab think they have an innovative trading platform? We built it 25 years ago. They haven't changed it one bit. Because they have to buy innovation that's 25 years old in order to think they have something. It's insane. They can't. Why can't they build it? They've got $1 trillion. Go build whatever you want. I can, there's 20 firms in India, Russia, and China, 50 firms that can copy it tomorrow if they wanted to. I mean, what's the big deal? It's not that hard.
In other words, you're saying AI that Rubicon is in the past, not the future.
Yeah, of course. I mean, who cares? You're like, yeah. So what are you going to do? You're going to plug in, Encyclopedia Britannica. I don't even know if that still exists. So you can get every single bit of information, every single copy of the New York Times, every single documentary that's ever been done.
I think there's a lawsuit. So what, do you have an opinion on this New York Times lawsuit about?
Yeah, well, it's the same thing. I mean, the comedians have a more interesting point, like comedians, DJs, everybody, like you can copy the greatest DJs, you can copy the best comedians, you can copy, actors and actresses and, blah, blah, blah. And
you can copy William Shakespeare.
Sure, exactly.
You can say to the AI, you are William Shakespeare.
Yep.
Write me a new play set in 2023 Christmas time Chicago with a protagonist named Tom.
Yep.
It'll write a play.
Yeah.
But you think it's a 3D printer. You think it's a foam doll when this is all said.
I do.
And is that simply, do you have a reason you think that, or is that just contrarian to the public of narrative?
No, that's not contrarian to anything. That's just the nature of that's the buy the rumor. I'm a buy the rumor, sell the news person. I don't think it's that. I
understand that. I guess I'm looking at this suggesting that implementation hasn't even occurred.
And I'm looking at it and saying
like
that
whatever's overpriced right now is just an undifferentiated sort of pre-development basket of equity. It's obviously mispriced one way or the other, but that the true economic consequence lays in the next decade, starting next year.
Yeah, when you say true economic consequence, I'm not exactly sure, what
so legal collapse in the cost of legal marketing. A lot of the sort of mid-level, I would call the creative economy.
Again, AI is going to be a wonderful asset for firms to commoditize and reduce the cost of things that until now have been non-competitive, like legal fees. And there are going to be
marketing costs.
There are going to be aspects of compliance, of legal, that are going to see their fees reduced dramatically due to AI. I have no issue with that. I've never liked the fact that it's a non-competitive, other than, what was that company called? LegalZoom or whatever? Other than LegalZoom, there's been basically nobody challenging the fee structure in that industry. You're going to see the same thing as we talked about before in real estate and things like that. Any marketplace that you can drive a truck through, which is the marketplace you can drive legal fees through, then they're going to be disrupted, and AI is only going to assist in that. But that was going to happen anyway. There's so much money out there now. There's so much money in the world chasing returns and chasing ideas that every single marketplace that is not efficient is going to be made efficient one way or the other. It doesn't matter how. You can call it AI, you can call it anything. Every single marketplace is going to be.
Okay, so let's use the word efficiency. I agree. Let's call it aggregate efficiency.
Okay.
Whatever function, energy unit in, energy unit out, however you want to indicate that.
Yeah.
Whether it's efficient markets, whether it's car tires over the pavement, whatever.
Sure.
Do you think that transition to the more efficient world, or the increasingly efficient world, occurs in a way that is... Do you believe that the social and political and government structure can adapt to the world, that efficient world, in a way that is healthy? In other words, if there's a battle between the conservatism of human beings, just by generational, even the most liberal human being is still conservative at their core as to wanting to have things be ish where they, whatever they are, versus a world that is saying, well, no, I don't need that many lawyers right now. I don't need that many real estate brokers right now. I don't need that many. There aren't that many $150,000 marketing jobs anymore. Like, there's a segment of the sort of, I would say, the urban 20-something to 40-something economy.
Yeah. I would argue that
relevant.
I would argue that there is efficiency has no boundaries, so that efficiency is good for everything. And I'm going to argue that there's no marketplace that will be disrupted by efficiency where the result is not going to be anything but positive. So I don't see this as a negative at all. I see this as a global positive. I think it's one of the reasons that the stock market is trading at the level that it's trading at is because not just because there's a lot of cash out there, it's because there's a lot of cash out there that is in search of liquidity and efficiency. And that's what you're seeing. And so I would argue that, and argue very strongly, that there is no negative consequence to efficiency.
If I was to replace the word AI with the word efficiency, would you be more accepting that there'll be a lot of efficiency implementation next year?
Well, I would say I would much prefer the word efficiency than AI, because to me,
I would say even the most ever, the same way you had the biggest. I think that because the rate of change is what it is, I believe all of the change that has happened in the past will be compounded, I'm sure, each year going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a positive thing. I just think a lot of these companies are priced to perfection right now. That's all. They're priced.
I mean, the only way I can actually explain the NASDAQ, personally, is that they must believe a very optimistic view of efficiency, because it's the only thing that mitigates default and,
well, there's also a lot of
other non-performance.
There's also a lot of FOMO and, desperation, catch up, and all that kind of stuff. There's other factors that go into, price levels, extreme price levels. So it's not the
No, of course,
not the craziest thing, not the rarest thing. Yeah.
Well, no, it is though. They're saying that the change from high to low is the duration and size is one of the fastest ever.
It is, but it's not, like if you go back just 2 years in the pandemic, we rallied 35% in 35 days or whatever. So no, it's not, this is a fraction of that. So it's like, it's not like we've never seen this stuff before. You can go back to 2009 and the rally was, 55% of the NASDAQ after we bottomed. You can go back to 2020 and we rallied 35% in, 5 weeks. So no, it's just, it's a lot, but it's not like we've never seen it before.
And it's again, it's a combination of it's just the change that intrigued me, that there could be such a change in opinion.
Yeah, well,
more on that side.
There's more players now, so you get more violent swings, and that violence is reflected in price. So it's just quite interesting. I don't try to read too deep into it. I think that's where the economists and everybody else mess up. Everybody tries to read into this. As soon as we end the whole idea that there's some fundamental side to this, then I think it'll be a lot easier for people to understand.
Can we return to our people of the year?
Yeah, sure. Let's go.
We got about 15 minutes left, and we've set our piece on month in the future.
And events of the year. We could talk about events of the year too. But the people of the year is kind of a fun thing.
What sort of events are you contemplating?
I don't know, just events that that I have to think about it. I just brought it up. It could be, like I said, it could be people. The people thing is interesting.
I mean, with the war is the obvious event.
Yeah, the war is the obvious event.
But that's a discussion that's not worth having.
No. Nobody wins.
Because they're not worth discussion, but because I don't know that I can offer anything.
Right. We're not going to debate the virtues of war. Yeah, or whatever. Mm-hmm. The people thing's funny because, simply because the Taylor Swift phenomenon is an economy of its own, and
but she's brilliant in her ability to include her fans as stakeholders in her. Like the difference, I think, between Taylor Swift and all the pop stars that came before her is she acts in a way that embraces her fan base as peers. Like they're in it together.
Yeah. And she's older, and so she figured it out, and it's impressive. That's all. It's impressive because Usually there's a lot more haters and a lot more, whatever. And it's impressive.
I mean, you can't find the only naysayer I could find on Taylor, this would be my final word on Taylor Swift, was actually with my 10-year-old niece in Los Angeles. And she was having none of it.
Well, like Megyn Kelly's of the world, they hate her, that kind of
thing. And I said, listen, what's the issue? She said, she's too emotional.
Really? Because rock stars, guy rock stars are very emotional too. That's
the musicians are an emotional experience.
Yeah.
Music is an emotional experience. Musicians' personalities are emotional. Anyway,
tell your niece if
she's hard. I had to look hard for a hater.
Tell your niece when she grows up and she doesn't want people that are very emotional. Go after traders.
He's like, it was too dramatic. She's like, so much drama.
Yeah, she doesn't want that. Then tell her that there's a lot of traders out there. You'll get exactly what you want.
Even more even keeled.
No, you'll get the other side of crazy.
And then Dion. I just think Dion has exceeded all expectations. And I think I think that he offers. I wish he wasn't selling sunglasses, but I do like his overall. I like I'm impressed.
Yeah. But I mean, guys like him it doesn't surprise me. I like underdogs, and I don't necessarily know if I consider him an underdog because he was one of the greatest players ever. So he's not a true underdog.
Yeah, but Jerry Rice is not doing this. Tom Brady's not doing this.
Yeah, they're very.
Jordan's not doing this.
Yeah,
he's showing a different personality as a leader. I think that other greatest have not shown.
Yeah,
in a way that I find like it's a different skill set. Yeah. Communication.
That's interesting.
Investing in young people as a sort of purpose.
One of the things I was debating with somebody the other day, we were talking about, in sports in general, everybody talks about like the value of the coaches and managers and head coaches, and just like, they put so much emphasis on, it's not necessarily on the players that much. It's always on, coaches.
On the big boss.
Yeah, on the bosses, which is to me very interesting because it's so subjective. Like what the coach calls and what the player actually does could be two very different things. And one player,
but the coach creates the culture. Bill Parcells has a famous story about changing the drug culture on the Giants. Where they hired Bill Parcells, new head coach.
I know.
One-on-one, no more weed, no more crack, blah, blah, blah.
I know. They say all that stuff. And it's interesting because...
but then he said Lawrence Taylor could still do as many drugs as he wants.
Well...
as long as he kept playing like that.
Yeah. What's interesting to me is that, I'm one of these people that believe that coaches play little to zero, they have little, maybe zero impact on the outcome of a game. They at the end of the year, they may impact, 1% of all the games, the outcomes, 2%. It's not more than, in baseball, I think it's 3 games. In football, it's like a half game. I mean, it's like the amount of the impact they have on the actual outcomes is virtually zero. But
calling the head coaches the economists of the sports world?
Kind of. They're there. They're there to, yeah.
They're like a brand ambassador for the team.
A little bit like a brand ambassador, and then somebody has to take the fall. Somebody, in Chicago years ago, Jerry Krause, who ran the Bulls, used to say that organizations win championships, and that's when he had Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and everybody else, and he said organizations win championships, and Michael Jordan always used to say, "F you." Great players win championships, and great players Like Tom Brady made Bill Belichick, and Michael Jordan, and Kobe Bryant made Phil Jackson, and you see this, and Mahomes made Andy Reid. These guys they are great coaches because they've got great players. And that's how it works. There's no such thing as a great coach with bad players, and that's all there is to it.
Do you think it's inefficient to pay them 20 or 30 million bucks a click?
It depends on the role they serve. In college, it's worth it because you're a recruiter. In the pros, it's different. You
need the salesman in college to.
Yeah, you're a salesman, and now that college is a for-profit. Sports are for-profit now in college. That you need a salesman. So, should you pay Nick Saban, $10 million a year? The answer is yes. Should you pay, Jim Harbaugh $10 million a year, $20 million, whatever it is? And the answer is yes, you have to, because you've got to recruit because it's big business. And that's just the nature of college sports right now. In the pros, I don't, the recruiting aspect of it's much different. And you're actually hired to kind of coach. And I think that's kind of a joke.
So you think the pro coaches should make like 500 grand?
Probably not, because there's so much money in sports and you have to be a good spokesperson and represent the team. But
10 million, 5 million, 2 million.
If you have great so the guy Detroit lost their 27th game in a row.
Regardless, it's a sales job. Regardless,
it's a sales job. Detroit lost their 27th game in a row last night. They have a great coach. They paid him $10, $15 million a year for 10 years or whatever. They made some crazy deal because he's supposed to be a great coach, but they've lost 27 in a row because his team stinks. They don't have players. But if you have great players. Popovich is one of the greatest coaches ever, but this year they're going to come in last place because they got no players. But
can you have great players with a bad coach and you got a bad outcome?
It's almost impossible.
There's got to be a bunch of examples.
It's almost impossible because great players make coaches great. I mean, occasionally you get a total jerk, but for the most part, great players make coaches great.
All right, onward to Santos.
Santos.
Our number 3 man and woman of the year.
You can end the year on George Santos. Well, only because, this proves that anybody in America, has a chance.
And it just shows how sort of porous and easily compromised the entire apparatus ultimately
I think it does show that because I think, I don't care what side of the political fence you were on. I think politics in America was embarrassed by him to the point where, obviously the Republicans were mortified. They had no idea. And obviously the Democrats did, they had no clue. And this guy just, it shows
kept going.
It shows all the flaws in the system. And, you can basically just make up create an identity. I mean,
you could go to AI and say, what do the people of Chicago want to vote for?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I am this, whatever this list is.
That was one of the scarier situations. And I think that, it exposed a couple of holes in our political, process that need to be corrected. At least we got to do a better job of vetting people.
No, I think it's I think that's why Santos is in the top 3 because it's a legend of vetting of discovery failure. We'll call it, I guess.
Yeah.
Some form of discovery.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you can argue, you want events for 2023. You could argue that, or last year, you could argue that, whatever the number in the end was, probably $100 million were lost because, we had the same vetting issue with SPACs. And in the world of finance, we've embarrassed the whole SPAC fiasco, embarrassed the world of finance. Everybody was chasing their own tail, throwing money at SPAC deals, of which they all came up, thinking that the whole appeal was just the free, the 20% options that you got to, the free options that all turned out to be worthless. And It just shows how greedy the marketplace was. And basically, I don't know what the total number was in the whole SPAC market that was blown to the public, but even with the market at record highs, it still has to be, close to $100 billion, maybe more. And
I think Santos shows that same level of madness.
yeah. Yeah. And so I like when we expose flaws in the system. I think that's kind of cool because I think that ultimately leads to, a better system. I mean, SPACs are pretty much, if you have a SPAC now, it's probably going to be a pretty good deal because there are no crappy deals anymore. And if you have a candidate running anymore, he's probably going to be who he says he is. Probably.
I mean, you answered my question. So why do you think probably?
Well, because I just think the vetting process right now, I mean, the Republicans don't want to be embarrassed by another George Santos, and I don't think the Democrats want to let that happen. I mean, it's embarrassing for the whole party.
So basically, who would in the district, the county chairs or whoever have a.
Well, he slipped through somebody's crack. I mean, nobody looked at this guy? I don't know. It seemed like his story was pretty flimsy.
I really liked when he said after they had already convicted, like he was basically he gave some press conference on the stairs before they threw it, right before he was saying how he was a victim of bullying.
He probably was.
I just couldn't believe. I like that he's playing all the way through. There was not a bone in his body wanted to concede any of the obvious deceit.
Yeah. Well,
at the very end to today, I would imagine.
Yeah, he'll probably be on Survivor in 2 years.
He might run for Senate from New York. I'm a New York voter. We're going to need a replacement for Schumer.
I think he'll be on Survivor, or he'll be on. He won't be on Naked and Afraid, but he'll be on. Like Dancing with the Stars or something. Like he'll have that.
I think we can get him. I think we get him back, Senator Santos. Schumer will hand off the baton in a formal ceremony in, Franklin Roosevelt Park in upstate New York. I think we can do better. I actually think that the old men won't win. I know we're out of time, but I'll make my prediction is, basically indifference to the mess with some human being that's not Biden or Trump as the president-elect in November.
I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be Biden or Trump. I think there's going to be somebody else. It might be two other people that are vying for it. And I do not think you're looking at the two frontrunners right now. From our mouths to God's ears, sir. That's why America works. And in order for America to work, we need to straighten this stuff out. So I think you're going to see a very different America, less than a year from now. July or August. Yep. When we lock in for September. Yep. All right, Mr. Radigan, that was good stuff as always. Entertaining. Happy New Year, sir. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you. Have a great holiday weekend, and I will see you next week with bells on. I'll be in Italy for the New Year's kickoff. I'll raise an espresso in your honor. We need to hook up with the Milanese tasty traders this year. You got it, brother. Talk to you later. All right. Bye.
Looking for a better broker?